Into the Sports Shuffle. It is December 9th, 2023, and I am a very exhausted flying Ryan Gokers along with.
Not quite as exhausted, but I've been there. Tampa Motor Mouth Joel Verlin.
Yeah, just literally within the last 15 minutes getting home from a disc golf tournament that went not quite as well as the one last week, but still good and I guess good enough. I don't know. I feel like I can do better, but the rating says I did better than normals. I don't know. Anyways, we're going to talk about another thing that did better than normal. That's the New England Patriots. Because they usually suck, and they didn't suck as
Yeah,
bad
that
this week.
was a very surprising game. As have my three ups for this game is just as everybody saw coming. Bailey Zappi. There's no doubting who the starter quarterback will be for the Patriots for the rest of the season. After Zappi energized his team single-handedly for the first half to earn the win.
Yep.
And do you have any shares of Hunter Henry? I'm sure we all saw that coming with a 2-touchdown game. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, of course, how about another thing we all saw coming? Not Zeke. 8 targets, 72 yards, and a score out of the backfield. I think anybody who started him will definitely take that.
Yeah, no Ramondre Stevenson, Zeke Elliott, and Hunter Henry stole the show. Patriots win 21-18. They tried to give this one away. Very controversial false start penalty on the
Oh, oh,
center on a punt
oh.
for the Steelers when they were
How
about at midfield.
how does moving ahead count as false start?
Yeah, you see it on all the plays where the center looks between his legs and pops his head up. And it looked like every other play. I know if you do it real fast, it counts as like a sudden motion, but he just kind of looked down, looked up, normal pace that you would see in an NFL game. And the Patriots knew that penalty was on them. They knew it until the ref called it the other way.
Yeah, because you had the Steeler players who were celebrating, like, hey, we just got gifted the first down, upright, go us. The crowd started celebrating. And then when the refs called it on the Steelers, oh, the boos rained down.
Yeah, it would have been 1st and 10 just past midfield for the Steelers with a field goal to tie. I mean, they were getting close to field goal range. They were getting close to an opportunity to go and tie or win the game. And
And
they unfortunately had it taken away by that bad call. Should have been on the Patriots. That would have been the right call there. But another instance where the refs ruin a fairly decent game. This
and
game hit the over by halftime, which was a big surprise.
and then before I get to my downs, as this one definitely would have to be in there, just Mitch Trubisky's questionable play call. Why don't you just hand it off to somebody? Why don't you do a quarterback sneak in that sitch late? Why are you tossing it 30 yards downfield in coverage?
That is probably a coaching thing. And I understand the logic on 4th and short, taking a chance because everybody's going to be up at the line. You have it open. However, when it's the play that determines whether you win, lose, or
Uh-huh.
continue to drive, maybe you just go for like a 4 yard out and try and just move the chains, and then maybe do it on the next play. But I get the logic of, okay, they're going to be crowding the line. They're going to stop us, go deep, but it was just a bad attempt. And it's Mitch Trubisky. Like, are you really counting on that to work?
Was it when I was listening to the Westwood One broadcast, and so one of the two commentators was like, "Yeah, it's risky for Trubisky." I'm like, "Okay." Of course, the downs. Yeah, George Pickens. I saw the perfect meme about him where it said, Steelers draft a wide receiver with character concerns. And then underneath that, with George Pickens and how he's reacting, you see the shocked Pikachu face meme. I mean,
Yeah, it really seems like the Steelers are the only team in the league that doesn't draft wide receivers. They draft wine receivers because Deontay Johnson's got it right now. Of course, they Brown going back, Antonio Brown going back in the day, and now George
the
Pickens
most
doing the same thing.
infamous of all of them.
And Juju had his moments. He wasn't a powder, but he still was dumb
Tick,
on the
tick,
field.
TikTok boy, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and hey, Juju had a pretty good game in his revenge
he
game
did. He did.
against the Steelers. No touchdowns, but over 80 yards and a few catches. And Bailey Zappi really did look much better. And now maybe it's just the play, the game plan was a little bit better, the execution was a little bit better. Whether that is the weakness of the Steelers, we have to mention that T.J. Watt in concussion protocol, took a knee
Ooh.
face from Zeke Elliott on
There
play number
goes
one.
what's left of their defense for the season.
And
Be
then
out.
Hayward on the other side also left this game with a concussion. So the defense for the Steelers took some early blows and it hurt them. And maybe that helped the Patriots as well. But the Patriots get a big win that they probably didn't even want because that moves them to 3-10.
Yeah, because you
It
think
moves them further from the number one overall
Robert
pick.
Kraft wants them to tank to get somebody better because they need help everywhere.
Yeah, it's one of those things where when you obviously if you're a fan of the team, it's a different mentality than if you're a player on that team. The players want to win every single game. The coaches really don't enjoy losing. I think they do understand there are times when you're better off taking the L. But the fans are like, you need to lose every game the rest of the way. Let's go 2-15. Let's see if we can jump Carolina/Chicago for the number one overall pick and go and get the next, hopefully, Tom Brady for the Patriots. Unfortunately, when you win a game against a now 7-6 Pittsburgh Steelers team, move yourself to 3-10. Now Carolina has to pick up at least 2 wins for you to have a shot at that number one overall pick. And frankly, even though they play in a very bad NFC South, that seems very unlikely.
Yeah, my other down was Jalen Warren, who was pretty much an afterthought on that night.
Yeah, he was
Averaged just 1.6 yards per carry on 7 rushes.
7 for 11. Did have decent
Oi.
numbers in the passing game, but Najee Harris didn't get it going. The Patriots defense is for real. The Patriots defense, 18 points this week. They held their opponents to 10 or fewer the 3 games prior. So they've been good defensively as that offense. If the offense gets going, maybe the Patriots aren't as bad as we thought. I mean, we saw them have good games against the Dolphins. We saw them beat the Bills. We saw them beat the Jets earlier in the season and be competitive. It's just been the last few weeks they've looked much, much worse.
And if you are a Pittsburgh fan and you're looking for some solace, the Pirates are off right now because, of course, everything is hot stove as Dodgers, of course, just got
Shohei
Ohtani.
Ohtani, 10 years for $700 million to the
After
Dodgers.
all that, he's going to be signing to the Blue Jays. We have the private flight trackers. He's up in Toronto, and you're like, yeah, not.
Well, I'm wearing a Rays hat, so I'm not upset that he didn't go to Toronto. I'm glad he went to the Dodgers. Stay
Yeah,
in the other league. We won't have to deal with them in the playoffs unless we meet in the World Series again. And if that happens, we'll take our chances.
Pirates, of course, in hot stove mode. But if you're a Pittsburgh fan and you're looking for solace from the Penguins, how about this tweet? I still call them tweet. What do you call them? X's now? Posts?
I think it's still tweets.
They're still tweets. They're tweets from Rob Rossi at real_Rob Rossi. Penguins on a 0 for 31 on power plays in the past 12 games, this one included. Modern NHL record is 16 games without power play goal. Cleveland Barons 1977-78 season. Have fun, Pittsburgh fans. Yikes. Yeah. As an interesting note, your Sharks actually are rebounding fairly well from their
They started off really bad. They're no longer the worst team in the West. I know they have a couple games in hand, but they've won some games. They have to win by scoring a lot of goals. So if they can figure out the defensive thing, this is a clear rebuilding team in San Jose. So you get some goal scorers, you get some offense, and maybe you tinker with that defense in the draft. You'll be just fine next year.
Pretty good when you come back down 0-4, 4 unanswered goals, and you win an OT. Not too shabby.
By the way, the greatest 5 minutes of NHL hockey in NHL history, possibly from that Detroit and San Jose game, because San Jose let Detroit score 4 goals in about a minute and a half, and then San Jose scored 4 goals in about a minute and a half right after. I think there was 7 goals in about 140 seconds in that game. That is absurd. That is NBA scoring.
Lightning need to take a defense class so far. Yikes.
Yeah, defense is a little bit lacking. But now that we've touched on some of the...
We won't be talking about the conclusion to the NBA in-season tournament.
Hey, it's Pacers-Lakers? Who gives a crap? But it's Pacers-Lakers for the title. In the only game that doesn't count for the regular season standings.
I saw the Change My Mind meme where someone had photoshopped LeBron in there, and the meme says, the NBA Cup will count as my 5th ring. Change my mind. No. Yeah.
There's also a nice little movement out there in the sports fan world that people are starting to concede that basketball has been broken by Steph Curry and the 40-foot three-pointer shot. And frankly, that's something I completely agree with. All right, now we've touched on all the sports. Let's talk more
Let's
football.
shift to the first game on the slate as we go into dun 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 mode where the 5-7 Buccaneers. Okay,
A
I just had to
chance
get
to
that
take
out.
over the lead in the division.
With the 6-6 Atlanta Falcons, first game on the slate at 1 p.m. What's
Yeah.
thinking for this game?
For the Bucks, you're going to play Rashad White. You're going to play Mike Evans. Those two have been just too good all season long. Chris Godwin, a little bit more of a desperation play, and so is Baker Mayfield. Kate Otten is always
Did
a
you see
tight end
there's an article?
consideration.
Apparently, Chris Godwin, significant, is not happy with the Bucks.
Yeah. For the Falcons, you're going to play Bijan Robinson, but Tampa does have a good run defense, even though it's a little banged up. You should be considering Drake
Little.
London and Kyle Pitts as well as Jonnu Smith, but none of them are must plays like Bijan. A pretty tame game for fantasy options. Again, it is week number 14, so this is for most people
Four more
the
to
last
go.
week of the fantasy football regular season. So final playoff spots will be handed out this
Playoffs?
week. So get those lineups in. Tampa Bay, like you said, 5-7. Atlanta 6-6. So a Tampa Bay tie. They split the season series. They'd be 6-7 at the same record. New Orleans playing Carolina. They could be a three-way tie at 6-7 on top of that division. I don't know who the tiebreak winner would be in that scenario, but Tampa Bay, if they lose this game, they're 2 games back. I think they're done at that point in the division. Atlanta has a chance to really put a stranglehold on this, at least over Tampa. Who gets the win?
Yeah, this game definitely feels like a toss-up as, Bucks are really beat up defensively. As you mentioned, it's getting worse. Vita Vea didn't practice. Uh, Today, he's probably the most important player for them stopping the run, which is, of course, the number one thing that Atlanta's going to do. Devin White didn't practice, and even Jamil Dean isn't practicing. So that is one very banged up D. And got to remember the first game, Falcons would have blown the Bucks out had Desmond Ritter not fumbled 3 times in the red zone. And Tampa really had some shaky moments. They were honestly some moments late that you thought Carolina could actually win this out. Tampa just makes me nervous as all hell going to week in 14 as it's hard trusting the Bucks after how they struggled with Carolina in week 15, with especially that close fourth quarter. Evans pretty much put the team on his shoulders and with some help from Rashad White carried the Bucks. I think Falcons have the better team and they're at home, so I'm picking Atlanta.
I agree that Atlanta has a better team, but I'm going to pick Tampa Bay because the NFC South is pure chaos. I think the winner of this division is going to be below 500. And if that's the case, then it makes sense that Tampa Bay is going to go into Atlanta and find a way to steal one. Tampa Bay hasn't played their best football in the last few weeks, and if they can get it going, Atlanta's a team that we know can just not show up at times. And if they don't show up, Tampa Bay can win this game. I'm going to take Tampa Bay in what should be a close game.
And Todd Bowles had a good shot across Arthur Smith's bow as he said, quote, on how the Bucks expect to stop Robinson, quote, we can stop him full time if he doesn't play, unquote. Ouch.
Of course, he missed the game, or I think had one carry in the game against Tampa Bay because of an illness or a migraine that wasn't reported.
Yeah, and then there was an investigation which really didn't go anywhere. So
yeah. Next up, this game's gonna have some weather issues.
Yeah, the Rams potentially could still get destroyed in Baltimore.
Worth mentioning, a lot of the East Coast and eastern side of the Midwest,
The
there
atmospheric river.
Yeah, it's a big trough going through, heavy rain, some very high wind totals. When we get to like the Jets game, that's going to be a huge wind event. That game's going to be very ground and pound when we get to that. But Baltimore's expecting about 20 miles to sustained wind. That's enough to affect the passing game. So that deteriorates your Cooper Kupps, your Puka Nakuas, your Zay Flowers, your Isaiah Likely's, your Earl Beckham. It deteriorates them as options. They are still good enough to play, especially in the Cup and Puka side of things. But temper your expectations. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a lot of ground and pound. So I think Kyron Williams, I think Gus Edwards, and Keaton Mitchell should all have pretty good games, and maybe Lamar gets on the ground as well. Tough week for Stafford and the Rams as they go across the country to Baltimore. Baltimore 9-3. The Rams are 6-6. Baltimore still fighting for that number 1 overall seed. As a Dolphins fan, let's go Rams. But as trying to be impartial, the Ravens need to win this game because Miami's got a pretty soft matchup against Tennessee, and they don't want to fall behind. They do have a big head-to-head later, but big game for Baltimore. And the Rams, again, 6-6. They were the 7th seed until the Packers won on Sunday night over the Chiefs. Who you got?
Baltimore historically does very well versus the NFC. Lamar out of conference is 18-1 straight up. That's a killer stat right there. Lamar just had his worst game of the season versus the Chargers, and that team is awful. Game number 2 with no Mark Andrews. If there's ever a spot where Baltimore takes a breath in a week, it's here. The remaining schedule, are you ready for this? At Jacksonville, then at San Francisco, versus your Dolphins, and then the finishing out with the, I think we can almost call them the pathetic Pittsburgh Steelers after that game. And
Pittsburgh beat them once already, though.
As Rams are 6-6 with a legit chance to make the playoffs, but I still think Baltimore will run all over the Rams defenses. Rams go from the destroyers last week to potentially the destroyed this week. Welcome to Payne Rams Population U. Interesting note, Odell Beckham suspended, but will be a captain to participate in the coin toss versus a special designation from, of course, head coach John Harbaugh. But I'm picking Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm taking Baltimore as well. Again, this is going to be a rough weather game, especially in the air with the passing game. The Rams, they're good with Kyron Williams on the ground, but they also have a much better passing game than Baltimore. I think that's going to hamstring them much more. Baltimore, we saw it for years. They were a ground and pound team. They still have that DNA in them. They still have the players. I think they're going to run the ball down the throat to the Rams and get the win, and we move on. Next up,
Lions and Bears. Oh, my.
This game actually looks like it's going to avoid a lot of the bad weather, so should be a pretty decent cold, albeit cold day, but a decent day in Chicago for the Bears and the Lions. For the Lions, I'm on Ross St. Brown, Sam Laporta. You should never pull those guys out of your lineup, as well as Gibbs and Montgomery have just been too good of late. And then maybe Jared Goff. He's been a little weird this year. It used to be home game good, road game bad. This one been a little hit or miss, but it is Chicago. The defense isn't great. For Chicago, I don't know what you do with that run game. It's still Devonta Foreman coming back from injury. Khalil Herbert is back, and Roshan Johnson took the lead when Foreman was out. So play at your own risk with that. I think Fields, I think Kmet, and I think DJ Moore are your best 3 starts in this one. I know I'm playing DJ Moore and the Field stack for a must-win playoff berth over the number 1 seed. So I'm really hoping they come through. Chicago, 4 wins, probably not going to be able to make a run at the playoffs, but if they win this game, they might end the week just 1 game out. Detroit, 9-3, 1 game back of the 1 seed in the NFC. They still have to clinch that division. They are 3 games up as of right now, but still have to find a way to clinch that division first. And I know it's Detroit. It's the first time in probably 30 years they've been this close to a division title. So a lot to play for both sides. Who gets the win?
You're looking Chicago, of course, off a bye. They're surging 4-8 team. You can tell they're definitely excited that Justin Fields is back. Definite weather game here could impact Goff way more than Fields. Weather 35 degrees and outdoor golf. Not good golf. Against Chicago just a few weeks ago, Goff threw 3 interceptions and had his 2nd worst yards per attempt game of the entire season. Also, Detroit's defensive weakness is against mobile quarterbacks, and Justin Fields has run for 100 yards 3 straight games against him. I was originally going for the Lions, but I think this is a tricky spot, mostly due to the outdoors and the weather concern. Can't believe I'm going all crazy here. I'm picking the Bears.
I agree that Chicago is going to have a pretty good performance. I think Justin Fields is more built to play outside in the cold weather than Detroit and Jared Goff, but I think the Lions find a way. They're going to utilize Montgomery and Gibbs heavily to keep the ball moving, and then that's going to allow Goff a little more time in the pocket to throw and make some good plays in this game. I expect Sam Laporta to be his best friend, especially if that win gets a little up there. I think Detroit, we saw them play horrifically at home against Chicago and find a
And the
way to
Saints
win by
almost came
5.
back and won.
Yeah, they like to get big leads and almost blow them. That could be the course of action this week as well, where they get a nice big lead early and try and hold on. But I think Detroit does get the win. I think this is they could be, I think, clinching the division this week if Minnesota, Green Bay lose and they win. If nothing else, they're 4 games up with 4 to go and right on that doorstep. I think Detroit knows that and they'll get the job done. Next up, Indianapolis at Cincinnati. A surprisingly important game for both teams. Indianapolis 7-5, currently in the playoffs. Cincinnati, after a great outing from Jake Browning last week, got the win, 6-6. On the outside looking in, but a win over Indianapolis would tie them in record and give them the tiebreak. For the Colts, still no Jonathan Taylor, so it's going to be Zach Moss for one more week at least. Michael Pittman's going to be your lineup, and it could be a very sneaky place for a Kylan Granson at tight end, a Mo Alley Cox. I don't know who it's going to be. Cincinnati very bad against tight end. And, of course, you could play Gardner Minshew in a pinch here as well. For the Bengals, Joe Mixon was the running back 1 last week. He's in your lineup. Jamar Chase has been just fine with Jake Browning. I'm not saying Browning is a great play, but if you're looking for pure desperation, 32 of 37 on Monday Night Football and a over 300-yard performance gives you some hope. Tanner Hudson at tight end, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. You might look their way if you're really desperate, but all in all, not the best options. Big game for both teams. Again, Cincinnati might have a little bit of wind. It should be mostly past that area by this time. Might be a little rainy, a little windy, but not too bad. Who gets the win? Remember, the Colts are a dome team.
Yeah, how much do we need to upgrade Browning this week after looking fantastic last week on the road at Jacksonville in the Monday Night Football game that absolutely shocked all of us? He also had a game a few years ago with no Burrow. Cincinnati beat Pittsburgh as a 14-point dog and won the next week against Houston. And when Minshew is the starter, the opposing team scores 21 points. They are 2-19 straight up. That's a whole bunch of outs. Ouch, not outs. As you have to pick the Bengals after that stunning Monday Night Football win. Colts might be the better team, but no Jonathan Taylor means the edge just goes to the Bengals. And you look in the case of motivation, which is prime factor here in December. I think the Bengals need this win more than the Colts do. So I'm picking Bengals.
Yeah, if the Bengals lose, there's a good chance they run out of track before they can get it back going. Cincinnati looked very good on Monday night. The real question here was that what we can expect from this offense? Maybe not 32 or 37 from Browning, but a very competent, capable offense, or is it going to be back and forth? I think this offense has enough weapons. It's going to be just fine. Indianapolis loves to give up points. It's not a tough defensive matchup. It's not as tough as Jacksonville. We saw what
Remembering
the
a
Bengals
certain
did.
Minnesota game last
Yeah.
year.
So I think Cincinnati gets this win. They move to 7-6, and despite everything that's happened, they could end the week in a playoff position between the Steelers losing, the Colts losing. We'll get to the Browns here in a second, but there's a chance that those 3 wild card teams all fall back. Bengals going to win, at least pull even in record. All right, next up is Jacksonville at Cleveland. Tough to handicap this one. You're going to play ETN. You're going to play Jerome Ford. This should have some heavy wind. It's a little further east. So I expect it to be a heavy ground game, especially if Trevor Lawrence is going to miss this game. He is going to be a game time decision. So it's possible he toughs it out and plays it. If he does or doesn't, I think this is an Evan Ingram special. High winds. It's going to be short passing. Evan Ingram is going to be the best option. Calvin Ridley could be there as well as Washington, and Zay Jones, I guess, but it's not going to be great for the passing game. So that goes with Amari Cooper. You're not going to love it. And David Njoku, again, short passing is going to be the way to go, but it's going to be the highlight of the week. It's going to be the running backs. Jacksonville, after getting humbled by the Bengals on Monday night, looks to get the win. Of course, Houston just one game back of them in the division. So are the Colts. So a win goes a long way, especially since we both have the Colts losing. If that comes to fruition, Cleveland 7-5, but since they lost, Deshaun Watson has been falling backwards in the standings. They still hold on to a playoff spot for now, but another loss, they could find themselves on the outside looking in very soon. Who gets the win?
Yeah, this game you're looking at a crazy quarterback situation. As Bethard, who was Lawrence's backup, also got hurt. So yeah, they might need to go to the third string quarterback, Nathan Rourke, who somebody could potentially start to try to get them into the playoffs. Crazier stuff has happened to fantasy football. As Cleveland will definitely run off and win will impact. That's the handicap to the under, but yeah, we know about everyone going, oh, pick the under Thursday night football game. That's an easy cash. Nope. Jacksonville also is not in a must-win spot, unlike the Bengals, as they can give Lawrence some rest in this game. So just sort of take it in chin, take it right off. It's like, yeah, okay. As can say that the opposite for Cleveland, who is in close to a must-win spot, as you can get for the Browns. Weather's going to be definite factor in this game, 45 degrees, and winds up to potentially 20 miles per hour. That's ouch.
Sustained, not including gusts.
Yeah, that's a big ouch for passing. As Wacko for Flacco, of course, looked serviceable. This is going to be a trenches game. Cleveland is way better here. If J Law were 100%, I'd go Jags, but he is far from it. His backup may not even be 100%. Plus, no Christian Kirk means Ridley gets doubled all game. I'm picking the Browns to eke out a win here.
I'm going to take the Jaguars. I think Trevor Lawrence is not only going to play, he's going to be a lot better than we think. High ankle sprains for a quarterback, not the same experience as they are for a running back or a receiver. He might have to be a little less mobile, might have to be a little bit smarter when he sees sacks coming, but all in all, I think he's going to be just fine. Travis Etienne is the better running back in this matchup when they are going to ground and pound. I think the offense and defensive lines are comparable enough. And I think Jacksonville just gets it done on the ground, but with Trevor Lawrence, we'll have enough through the air to make a difference. Next up,
the game of the day, not
Carolina at New Orleans. Some reason Derek Carr looks like he's going to start, even though he's been concussed twice this season. If it was Tua with 2 concussions, everybody would say he needs to retire. Derek Carr gets 2 and just go back out there. You're not important. For Carolina,
it'll be famous Jameis for the second half anyway, right?
Yeah. For Carolina, it's going to be Chuba Hubbard as your best fantasy option. Adam Thielen's completely fallen off the cliff. The age may have finally caught up to him. And Jonathan Mingo is an interesting play, but really it's just Chuba Hubbard in this game. For the Saints, you're playing Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave, and pretty much end of list. The Saints, 5-7. Depending on the Tampa-Atlanta game, they could end the day in a 3-way tie for first in that division. Carolina is a team you cannot lose to and have hopes of winning this division. Ask Houston, who's the only loss or only win on Carolina's schedule, and they're 1 game back. Would have been a nice win for Houston to have gotten it. Carolina, though, just a complete and total mess. But every now and again, one of these teams comes up and bites somebody. Well, this is not exactly a powerhouse who gets the W.
Yeah, you don't trust the Panthers enough to back them, but I think it's you have a hard time backing the Saints also, but easiest schedule in the NFL, and how many games have the Saints covered? 1. Still, looking at all that, it's the freaking Panthers. Saints have their woes, but Taysom or Carr or Jameis or whoever the hell is the quarterback here for whatever portion of the game, just plus AK and Olave should be enough to beat a team that is now officially eliminated from playoff contention and taking the Saints.
Yeah, you got to take the Saints. They're too good offensively and defensively compared to the Panthers to blow this one. There's too much to play for. If they lose this game, Dennis Allen could be fired on Monday. I don't think that happens right now, at least. It's going to happen in the offseason, but I think they get the job done. Next up, possibly the worst weather game of the week with the New York Jets hosting the Houston Texans. It's possible we have sustained winds well above 20, 25 miles an hour with gusts much, much higher. So, Brees Hall, Dalvin Cook, Singletary, and Pierce should all be at least in consideration. Brees Hall didn't practice in a lot of the week. Questionable, he should play. I don't think you want anything else on this team. Maybe it's Nico Collins. Maybe it's Garrett Wilson. Maybe you're desperate and just have to play CJ Stroud, especially in the super flex, but temper your expectations. This is going to be a tough game to throw the ball in.
Yes.
And
This is gonna be like a 9 fantasy point contest, and you're just gonna be like,
remember, the Jets, while being terrible offensively, do have a good defense. So this, I think, will be the lowest scoring game of the week. I don't think it's going to be really competitive for lowest scoring game of the week. I think they're just going to get it pretty cleanly. Again, fantasy options is running backs, maybe a tight end if you're really desperate, but all in all, just a nasty weather game coming. The Jets, I think they're done. I think 4-8's too much.
mess.
Yeah, I think they're not coming back. I think that if they lose this game, Aaron Rodgers is going to basically be told, no, you're shutting it down for the rest of the season because the season is over. Houston, if Jacksonville finds a way to lose, they have to win this game, and they would pull even. So this is a game that Houston has a lot more on the line for. Who gets the W in your opinion?
Yeah, fun fact, the Jets have more safeties on defense this year in the first quarter than they've scored offensive touchdowns in the first quarter. Fun fact. Even without the tank, yeah, I think the Texans have enough firepower between Damian Pierce and Devin Singletary to beat the mess and their woeful offense walking in the Texans.
Yeah, I'm going to trust the Texans. I do think the Jets have one of their better chances to get a win this season this week just because the weather and the style of game. It's going to keep it very low scoring. And when it's low scoring, you never know what can happen. But I think Houston has too much talent. They have the ability to get some points on the board. I think if they get 13, the Jets offensively in good weather would struggle to keep up. And in bad weather, this could be a 2.2 inches per play thing for Zach Wilson, like he had against the Patriots last year. I'm going to take Houston as well. Next up, a surprisingly important game for both teams. Minnesota at Las Vegas. The Raiders have lost 2 in a row, sit at 5-7, but if they can get a win, they can be within one of the final wild card spot at the end of the week. Minnesota 6-6 currently sits as the 6th seed in the NFC, but with Green Bay, the Rams, very hard charging behind them, and even teams like New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Chicago. There's some teams that Seattle that are trying to track them down. So a win here would go a long way. Of course, this is the long-awaited return of one Justin Jefferson, but the first game he's going to play with Joshua Dobbs. So we don't know exactly how the chemistry is going to work. You're going to play Justin Jefferson. He's been out for so long. He is 100%. You're going to play him. Hope for the best, but it could be tough.
It's got to be better than the chemistry of Trubisky and George Pickens and going, I'm open.
Yeah, I think Addison's the big loser in this one. Probably still at least consideration. TJ Hawkinson and Alexander Madison probably in their lineups as well. For the Raiders, it's Adams and it's Jacobs. There's nothing else on this roster to get excited about on the offensive side of the ball. Again, very important game for both teams. The Raiders with a loss are probably out of it. With a win, they could be one game back. Minnesota with a win, going to stay in the playoff picture. With a loss, who knows? There's some teams right on their heels. Who gets the win?
Both teams coming off of buys might lead to a sluggish start in the game. Raiders interim head coach that the team clearly likes playing for, so they definitely have a going for them. And Raiders play Minnesota and the Chargers, so they could be motivated as long as they're not looking too far ahead. They have their minds focused on this game, getting back to 500. All that being said, Dobbs and the Vikes have a huge boost with Justin Jefferson coming back, but like you said, it all depends upon that chemistry if they can get something going. The other Double J, Josh Jacobs, has been struggling of late. If you have any shares of him in fantasy, and you're just going, dude, what's up? As I think Justin Jefferson returning gives the slight edge to the Vikings. I'm picking the Vikings.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Justin Jefferson is the difference maker in this game. I expect a massive game from Josh Jacobs this week just because Minnesota's defense is really not that good.
He needs to do
And
something. He's been
and the best way to beat Minnesota is to just ground and pound, wear that defense down, keep that explosive, even with Dobbs or whoever else is at quarterback. It's still an explosive enough offense. Just keep them off the field. But I don't think they do quite enough because we saw with the Chiefs game a few weeks ago, Vegas can get up big and then they can give it right back. And I think Minnesota just is too talented on both sides of the ball to get a loss, and they have too much to play for. I think they win. I think they, for all intents and purposes, end the season of the Las Vegas Raiders, at least for playoff aspirations, and they move to 7-6.
Speaking of
Moving on.
another team that'll probably have their playoff aspirations ended.
I mean, the good thing about Seattle and the NFC is at worst, you're going to be one game back at 6-7 after this week, but they have a very tough schedule upcoming. And it started a couple of weeks ago with playing the San Francisco 49ers. They put a good fight last week against Dallas. And then now they go to San Francisco and play the 49ers once again. San Francisco won that game 31-13. For Seattle, Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet, both questionable, so keep an eye on, I believe they're actually going to be game time decisions, so keep an eye on the injury report.
Wasn't there some concern about Geno, too?
Geno's got a groin injury. He is, at the very best, questionable. I'm trying to see if I can get the exact update on this. DK Metcalf's going to be in your lineup. I think Tyler Lockett has played his way out of must-start territory. And maybe Jackson Smith and Jigba has taken his place. Yeah, Geno's questionable with the groin injury. I'm still looking for the rest of the updates from that. For the Niners, you're going to play pretty much everybody you could think of. Brock Purdy's a must start. McCaffrey, Samuel, Ayuk, and Kittle. They're not all going to go crazy. There's going to be one of those guys that typically does not have a great game. More often than not, it tends to be Kittle lately. But one of them is going to be the odd man out. But the rest of them should have very good games.
We're going to hear touchdown, CMC.
Yeah, Zach Charbonnet and Ken Walker look good at practice today, according to Pete Carroll. They're game time decisions. So we'll see. A late window game, not ideal for game time decision, but you got to play your best players this week, and you might have to pivot last minute.
Yeah.
The Niners, 9-3. Seattle, 6-6. As Joel alluded to, a loss for Seattle. Their playoff hopes get a little bit dimmer. San Francisco, after the big win against Philly, if they can pull even with Philadelphia, they would jump them as the number one seed in the NFC. And, of course, going to San Francisco, a lot more difficult than people give it credit for. Joel, who gets the win?
I don't think you really need a lot of analysis, especially after just seeing these two teams play. On Turkey Day, 49ers absolutely got them good. And I think we tend to see a repeat of it as Seahawks couldn't get her done on Turkey Day. And 49ers are going to be a repeat of being dominant. And I think they sweep the season series here.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a pretty good carbon copy of what we saw a couple weeks ago. Maybe a little more lopsided in favor of San Francisco as they are at home. Hopefully, Seattle can get the offense moving and make this a game. But at the end of the day, San Francisco is just dominant on both sides of the ball. They're, I think, the best team in the NFL, even though the record is behind Philadelphia and tied with teams like Miami, Baltimore, Dallas, Detroit. I think they're head and shoulders above the rest right now. And they've never lost a game when it's been Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and Brock Purdy all finishing the game. So I got to think San Francisco's got something going. We'll see how far it takes them in the playoffs when it gets there, but I think it takes care of business on Sunday.
Big game in Arrowhead.
Next up, this is a game I think was a lot more looked forward to at the beginning of the season than it is now, but it is still a very big game. Buffalo at Kansas City. Buffalo 6-6. Who would have thought we'd be talking about the Bills struggling to stay in the wild card race as they are the number 11 seed in the AFC. Kansas City 8-4. They're leading the AFC West, but they have bigger aspirations than that. They want that first round bye, make everybody come to them in Arrowhead. And that is a big thing. For Buffalo, you're going to play Josh Allen. You're going to play Stephon Diggs. I'm going to say something very, very dumb. I think this is a big Gabe Davis week as well. He's got very good history against Kansas City. could be terrible because it's Gabe Davis and it's literally bad week, good week. Let's flip it.
Spin the wheel of Gabe.
Yeah. And yeah, we'll see. I think Jared Cook's not going to have a great game in this one. Dalton Kincaid should be good, but
Isaiah
Dawson Knox is
Pacheco,
coming
of
back.
course, out.
Isaiah Pacheco for the Chiefs is out. Jerick McKinnon, CEH. I think both of them will be decent, not great.
Yeah,
But if you're in a deep
Andy
league,
Reid said Hilaire was going to be getting the most of the carries.
yeah, if you're in a very, very deep leagues, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to have some good value this week. It might not last beyond this week when Isaiah Pacheco comes back, but IR is on the table as well with, with Pacheco. So it could be something that you have him for a longer period of time, as I just now picked him up in our 16-team league. Thank you, everybody, for not picking Clyde Edwards-Helaire up in such a deep league. Anyways, I don't know if he's going to make my lineup. I think he actually will because I have Chase Brown in the lineup right now. So, yeah, Clyde in the lineup. So Clyde's definitely in consideration in deep leagues. Rashee Rice at the wide receiver is your best bet for Kansas City. And, of course, Travis Kelce, Pat Mahomes are going to be in your lineup. Kansas City with a loss could be 2 games behind Miami and Baltimore for that number 1 overall seed. And at that point, I don't think they're getting it. And then for Buffalo, with a loss, they go to 6-7. Yes, they will probably only be 1 game out of that last wild card spot, but they have Dallas on the horizon and they close the season against Miami. They're going to have to win at least one of those to make the playoffs. They might need to win out to make the playoffs. So big game for both teams. Of course, Kansas City, Denver is rapidly coming up behind them in the standings. They're only 2 games back. They split the head-to-head. Denver's playing the Chargers. We'll get to the game next. So this actually has some divisional implications. And if Buffalo loses, Miami might be able to clinch the division this week because they'd be 4 games up with 4 to play with a win over Tennessee. So big implications, both sides, even outside of this game. So again, a big game, even though we were a little more hyped about it earlier in the year when we thought this would be better teams. But Joel, who do you got?
Buffalo, pretty much, as you mentioned, has no shot at the playoffs if they lose this game. And you definitely have to like the fact that Josh Allen is finally running versus Philly. He ran for almost 90 yards, could add a new handicap to this game versus KC. Yeah, the Bills are fighting for their playoff lives, where the Chiefs are struggling to find any offense, just other than Kelsey, somebody who can catch the ball. Pacheco's out, so McKinnon and Hilaire going to have to step up and fill those gaps. Right now, I'm picking Bills as I feel like they're the team who really, really wants it more here.
Well, I'm picking Kansas City, and I'm looking at this a different way. Buffalo, in the last few weeks, has fired their offensive coordinator and still lost a couple of games. They did beat the Jets the first week without him. Fair. They also have Von Miller, who was arrested. They're dealing with that. And, of course, the big story this week was Sean McDermott in 2019 talking about how his team needs to come together like the 9/11 attackers did. Yeah, that story hitting the news this week is not beneficial for the Bills. I think there are way too many distractions. And frankly, this is the kind of game that we think the Bills should come out and play well and win, and they just don't.
When your brain is about to say something like that, we should have a built-in thing like the Windows pop-up screen that comes up in your retinas and only to you. It says, "This is amazingly stupid. Are you really sure you want to say this?"
Yeah, I get the idea of coming together as a team. I understand that you could technically say that the attackers on 9/11, yeah, they came together.
It's right up there. It's right up there.
You don't have to say it, though. You shouldn't say it. And with that coming out, with the offensive coordinator being fired, with all the talk around Josh Allen and how the team has played with Von Miller, all the injuries, I just feel like this is a game Buffalo is going to come in saying, we need to take this win. We need to get control. And they're going to find a way to blow it. And Kansas City has a very good defense, so they can slow down this offense. And I just think Kansas City gets it done. Now, I'm not rooting for Buffalo to win, but I am definitely fine with Kansas City losing. But I kind of want Buffalo to be out of the playoffs by the time we play them in week number 18. Personally, just
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I'm a Buffalo not fan
you have to
hater.
wonder if somebody sort of took him in the office and said, "Did you really say that, Coach?"
Did I do that? Yeah, you did. And we'll see what I mean. If Buffalo doesn't make the playoffs, they've had a good run of success, but they
That,
haven't gotten to a Super Bowl.
that's way beyond an Urkel moment.
Yeah, they haven't gotten to a Super Bowl. They haven't. I think they've only been to the conference championship once in his tenure. Now you have a team that might miss the playoffs entirely when they have high hopes, and you have that, which, yes, people say dumb things. Yes, people make mistakes. But when is the head coach, the person who's supposed to inspire and talk to your team, and they've come out and said, people have come out and said, "Oh no, he's awkward. He is very socially awkward." McDermott. It could lead to him not having a job at the end of the year. I don't think it will, but it's possible. If they finish 7-10 and like they lose badly in this game, lose badly to Dallas, and they lose badly to Miami in the last week of the season, miss the playoffs, and that it could spiral in that. Then you have to worry about Stephon Diggs with all his talking. It could fall apart with Buffalo very, very quickly, is all I'm trying to say. Next up, Denver at the Chargers. This is very similar to Minnesota, Las Vegas, but it's in division. The Chargers 5-7 with a loss. They're probably done. Denver 6-6. They can afford the loss and stay within the game, but I think the vibes around Denver would start to go back of, oh, well, they just got real hot and they're not a great team. But for Denver, they've been playing much better of late. The defense has been fantastic. For the Broncos, Javonte Williams, Cortland Sutton, Russell Wilson is a surprisingly good play this week, and even Jerry Jeudy, because the Chargers defense is bad. Jerry Jeudy could be a sneaky good option. For the Chargers, is Austin Eckler still must start? He's been horrific of late, and there's talks that Joshua Kelly might get more touches.
Oy.
I don't think you can possibly bench Austin Eckler. You took him too early in drafts. You likely don't have three better options between your two running backs and your flex position to bench him, but there's a case to be made. Keenan Allen is the only surefire start, I think, for the Chargers as of right now. Justin Herbert, after the first year and a half of him making me look like a complete fool for calling him a trash can, has reverted to exactly what I said he was. He's been terrible the last 2 years, 2.5 years. And the Chargers are just not a good team. But 5-7, Denver, not much better. Big game for both teams. And of course, Brandon Staley still fighting for his job. So who gets the win?
Well, at least Brandon Staley didn't say anything stupid this week yet. As all Chargers do is play really close games that they tend to lose in the fourth quarters. We've seen that time and time again this year. Denver has been lucky on turnovers, and now they finally lost a game because of it. Very important for Denver to get a lead. Does not quite sure if they have it in them to come back to win. So they need to have a lead and a sizable one. 2 straight weeks now, the Denver offense has been awful. It is 8 points per game versus New England. And Baltimore, of course, no surprise. Baltimore shuts down most teams. All you need to do is take away Keenan Allen, and the Chargers are done on offensive as far as any kind of momentum forward goes. As the Chargers tend to score first in 16 of the last 19 games and 5 of the last 6 at home. Start fast and die at halftime. Chargers are considering an RB split, as you mentioned, because Eckler just has not been the running back we all have drafted. When you saw him in the first round, you go, oh yeah, Eckler, yeah, and then you're kind of going, dude, where are you right now? Yeah, I'm picking the Broncos. They have the better quarterback, the better coach, and the better defense.
Yeah, I'm looking at Eckler in my Yahoo league, and I did play Najee Harris in my running back slot because it's Thursday night, you move him up. And I have Kamara, and then I am really considering benching Austin Eckler for a Jerome Ford, who I think is just going to get a ton of work. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but I'm tempted. And unfortunately, that just shows how far he and the Los Angeles Chargers have really fallen. And I think Denver is just the much better team. Their defense is far superior than the Chargers.
I believe they are free falling.
Yeah, and at this point, I think the Broncos offense is better than the Chargers. I mean, the
You
Chargers are
would have
beat up.
thunk you
Austin
would
Eckler,
have
I
ever
think, is
said
dealing.
that.
I think Austin Eckler is dealing with an injury. We obviously know Joshua Palmer, Mike Williams have been out for an extended period of time. Mike Williams can be out the rest of the season. Palmer doesn't sound like he's going to be back this week. I'll verify that here in a second. But I have to take Denver. I think they're just the better team. And at some point, and I don't know if it's this week, at some point, I think the Chargers quit on Brandon Staley. And if it's not this week and they are eliminated from playoff contention this week or next, I think they quit on him. I think he gets fired. And I think that is the end of the long suffering, as Josh Palmer not activated this week, by the way. And I can't trust the Chargers. I just can't do it. All right, next up, Sunday Night Football. Game of the week for sure.
For reals.
Philadelphia at Dallas. Of course, we get one of these every year on prime time, but 10-2 Philadelphia versus 9-3 Dallas. Top of the division, top of the conference on the line this week. Philadelphia, you're going to play everybody. You're going to play Hurts. You're going to play Brown. You're going to play Goddard, who's coming back. You're going to play Devonta Smith. And even if Swift is playing, I know he got whacked last week. If he's playing, he's probably at least in consideration for Dallas. Again, you're going to light them all up. This might not be the best Pollard week, but Dak Prescott, Jake Ferguson, Brandon Cooks, and of course CeeDee Lamb have to be in your lineup. This should be a very good game. I have a weird suspicion and just a hunch. This is going to be a more defensive game than we're expecting. Of course, the first one was 28-23. I think it's going to be a little lower scoring than that. And this one's at Dallas, so no weather concerns. If it was in Philadelphia, it'd be real bad weather. But fortunately, this one's in the Dome and Jerry World in Dallas. Dallas has looked fantastic the last few weeks. Philadelphia hasn't looked. I honestly don't think Philadelphia's looked at their best all year long. But at 10-2, you have to respect what they've done. So, Joel, who gets the win? Big game for both teams.
Oh, yeah. Big game. Legit big game. As Philly defense only played 57 plays last week and was getting blown out in the quarter four. So, not exciting when you're talking about that extra energy. Dallas will not let up if they get a lead. In Dallas, wins they have faced Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones. Don't let the Joneses get you down. Tommy DeVito, Sam Howell, Justin Herbert, and Geno Smith. In Dallas, losses Josh Dobbs, Brock Purdy, and Jalen Hurts. Even if Dallas wins this game,
one of those names is in this game.
I do declare you are correct. Even if Dallas wins this game, Philly still wins the tiebreaker. Should that come up, and English is a difficult language to pronounce. Pronunciate. Key reason why I'm switching the pick. I have no idea what that is. The pick to Philly, because originally I had Dallas. Nice run by Dallas in the last month against Washington, Carolina, the Giants, and Seattle, who could have won that game with all the 50 gajillion freaking penalties, as they should call it, Thursday night penalty ball. But now they play against a good team in Philly, where they tend to struggle. I'm picking Eagles because it's time for Dallas to turn into the disappointments we are all used to seeing when it's crunch time.
I think this is going to be a game that is very close, but Dallas is yet to be the team that currently has a winning record. Seattle 6-6 is the best team they've beaten. Philadelphia is a much better opponent than what they're used to beating down on. And I think Philadelphia is a 3.5-point road dog in this one. I think if you are a betting person, this is a must-take line because you're given the best record in football, 3.5 points against a division rival that they have dominated in the past. And I think Philadelphia wins this straight up. Obviously, that means they cover the spread. And I think Philadelphia puts Dallas in their place. I think Dallas is going to be the 5 seed. They're going to beat whoever comes out of the NFC South. And then they're going to get smacked by either Philadelphia or San Francisco.
Dallas absolutely ran over the Bucs, but then got smacked by the 49ers, if memory serves.
I think that's how it goes for their season once again. And Philadelphia gets another win where they don't win pretty. And sometimes it's like, oh, the refs bailed them out or they got very, very lucky.
They don't they don't win pretty.
No, they don't
Okay.
beat Purdy. But I think they get the
Sorry,
win
couldn't
here, and
resist.
they hold on to that number one overall pick or number one overall seed because remember, a loss and a San Francisco win. Yes, they might still win the divisional tiebreak. They could fall down to. They definitely would fall to second, but maybe even third, depending on how Detroit goes and how that tiebreaker works out. All right, next up, we go to the first of two Monday night football games that happen
That
at the exact same time.
thank God they're not staggered.
Yeah, at least I mean you can pick one, or maybe you get the multi-view on YouTube TV if you do that. But first one's going to be Tennessee at Miami. Miami, a huge favorite because Tennessee has been very, very bad. For Tennessee, you're going to play Derrick Henry, end of list. Maybe Hopkins if you're desperate, but it's really Henry's the only must start. For Miami, Achane, Mostert, Tua, Waddle, Tyreek, all in your starting lineup. This should be a good passing game for the Dolphins because Tennessee's bad against the pass. I think they're going to use the pass to free up the run in this game, honestly. And there's just a ton of weapons on that Miami side. Miami, 9-3, first place in the AFC. Baltimore with a tough game, possibly some major weather issues that could throw that one away. We don't expect it. Miami could know by that point they can get a game lead on the conference with a win. We'll see how the rest of the week works out, but it's a big game for Miami. Tennessee season 4-8, they're done unless they win out and get very lucky, which a tough week to start that with Miami. So Joel, who gets the win here?
Yeah, I don't know that the Titans offensively can keep up with Miami once they're chasing, since we know Dolphins, unless Dolphins sort of do what they did against Carolina with it. Okay, well, we'll spot you 14 points. Guess what? We still win. So I think the Titans would be a definitely dangerous opponent to try that against. And that means the Titans are going to have to lean on Will Levis. And not sure if that's something you could really depend upon. As last week, they definitely had some offensive success, but that's because they ran for 170 yards. And yeah, against Miami's D, not what you call a good bet. The weather could come into play. Chance of rain and 10 to 14 miles per hour, so that might sort of hamper passing some. I think Dolphins should run wild all over Titans, who are a shell of their former selves, even from just a few years ago. Picking
Yeah,
Dolphins.
for Tennessee, what they really do need is for this to be a sloppy weather game, higher winds than we're expecting as of right now, 10 to 15. It's enough to affect it, but it's not enough to completely derail it. And they need to get out to a lead. They need to do what Carolina did and just pound Derrick Henry and keep the offense off the field. I don't think they get it done. I do think Tennessee scores on their first drive, and they get the Henry touchdown. They keep it competitive until about the middle of the second quarter, and then Miami takes off. And once they have to rely on Will Levis coming back in the game, when it was Tannehill, when it was anybody else, when they fell behind, they were done. I think if at some point they're going to just fall too far behind,
That's when
Miami coast
you're
to a
gonna
win.
get like a 35 touchdown run by Mostert as he just goes ballistic.
Yeah, Achane's back. He didn't break anything massive last week, did have 2 touchdowns, but he's got a chance in this one that, again, they're going to use the pass to open up the run, the opposite of what a lot of teams do. I think Miami wins this going away as Joel disappears. And we'll move on to the last game. I'll get the preview before Joel gets back. Green Bay at the New York Giants. Joel will be back in 3, 2, 1. Green Bay at the New York Giants. The Giants also playing at home where the Jets had the horrible weather. The weather will have cleared out by the Monday Night Football game. It should be a fairly nice night. Cold, but fairly nice night, at least with wind and rain in New York. For the Packers, Jordan Love has been exceptional the last 3 weeks. He has to at least be considered. The Giants defense is not great. Keep an eye on the Aaron Jones injury. A.J. Dillon would be a smash play if Jones misses once again. No Christian Watson, but Romeo Dobbs should get an increase in work, and should Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed. For the Giants, Saquon Barkley. That is pretty much it. The Packers, 6-6, hold the 7th seed, have a very soft schedule the rest of the way. I believe they have another game against the Bears and maybe 1 or 2 against Minnesota. Those are going to be big games. But the Packers have a very winnable last 5 of the season to try and sneak into the playoffs. And, of course, the entire NFC North is saying, oh, no, they did it again with the quarterback because Jordan Love has looked fantastic. For the Giants, Tommy DeVito has turned a corner, and this team looks much better offensively than they did a few weeks ago. But is it good enough, and is that defense good enough to hold Green Bay and get the win?
Yeah, because right now I know some people tend to scream that New York Giants here off a bye and Green Bay, they're happy and they're fat, they're drunk after beating KC. But hold the phone and stop the presses. Matt LaFleur in December 16
Undefeated.
and 0, straight up in 10-6 against the spread. Have to roll with 11. The Packers here as they're really stepping up big in crunch time. Giants should put up a good fight as DeVito has been a pleasant surprise and an amazing story for this year. But Packers take a bite out of the Big Apple for Week 14.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Giants keep this one a little uncomfortably close. This is going to be the better of the two Monday Night Football games as far as a watchable and close game. But I do think Green Bay is just clicking on too many cylinders right now. The defense is coming together, and that offense has looked as good as it's looked all season long right now. That young core is coming together nicely. And the Packers, like you said, undefeated under Matt LaFleur in December. They have a very soft December schedule this year. They could do it again. And I just think they get a comfortable but closer than you'd like win against the Giants and move to 7-6 and hold on to a playoff spot. All right, so that's it for picks on week number 14. We are at the fantasy football playoffs now. So it's time for final thoughts, Joel.
All right, I actually have a list here. I'm sure you've seen that incredibly insane story about the Jaguars. Now, a former employee who apparently embezzled $22 million. You have to get the Austin Powers Dr. Evil $1 million from the organization. And of course, you have the story about how he did it and with his rather unique title. But here, this was the most interesting part, I think, of the story. And I have a list of everything that Amit Patel, the former employee's name, reportedly alleged to have bought, used, or accrued with proceeds from this scheme. Are you ready, Ryan?
Oh, yeah.
Number 1, a condo in Ponte Verde Beach, Florida.
That is not a cheap area.
Number 2, a Tesla Model 3. Number 3, a Nissan pickup truck.
Because you need two cars. You can drive both at the same time.
Got to have a backup in case, the Tesla is in charge, right?
Yeah.
Number 4, online gambling bets.
Yeah.
Number 5, a designer watch worth over $95,000 because...
What is he, Mike McDaniel now?
Next, private jets and luxury hotels for travel with his friends. You might as well if you got it.
If you can get away with it.
Now, this next one actually shows some smarts. A retainer with a criminal defense law firm. Yeah, he knows.
I'm doing some pretty shady crap. I'm going to need you guys at some point. I'm going to live it up until then, though.
Cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it's a loss.
NFTs, yeah, because you need to have those virtual zebras or tigers or whatever the heck.
NFTs are the biggest scam in the history of the world, I think.
I've got the $75,000 virtual zebra that I really would like you to buy.
Hey, remember Top Shot when those are only going to go up in value? Now they're all worth about a nickel, if that.
Or then you had this virtual world that you had actual virtual real estate that you paid serious money for, but that you could never use. Okay. Assorted electronics. Yeah, how many Bose wireless headphones can you buy with the earbuds?
22 million, quite a bit.
Sports memorabilia.
Yeah, hard to come by when you work for an NFL team, I guess.
A country club membership.
Does it say where? Because, Sawgrass is right there. That's a great course to have a membership to.
And if we could do that, we would hit the thing from Caddyshack. Come on, while we're young. You got to have that quote in there whenever you're talking golf. Spa treatments.
No.
Concert and sporting event tickets. And that's the list. Not too shabby.
Well.
At all. And that's my
I hope they had fun.
Final thought.
My final thought's actually going to touch on a little bit of that, and that is the fact that I don't know how he racked up all the gambling debt when sports gambling was not legal until Florida until this week. It is legal now in Florida through the Hard Rock app. If you choose to play responsibly, play in control.
You have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Don't steal $22 million from your organization to fund that and other interests. Like, if you're going to do it, play for, like, you put $5-10 on a parlay every week or so. You're not hurting. Play within your means. The whole thing on the commercial. Play within your means. Don't chase your losses. Understand all that. Just be responsible if you're going to do it. I know people out of the state who've been doing it for a while. They've actually gotten pretty good at it. I'm going to dabble with it. I'm not going to go crazy, but be responsible if you do choose to do it. It is finally legal in the state of Florida. It'll be fun, but don't bet so much that it's not fun and it's just stress.
Yeah, one of the ads that I keep hearing, I always flip it around and it says, yeah, with our app, you can take $10 and in just a few seconds turn it into $0.
Yeah. Again, Joel, if you bet $10 a week, you're probably not losing your livelihood. You're probably not losing your marriage. You're probably not losing your house, your car. There are people that bet thousands upon thousands of dollars on this stuff because they do not know how to control themselves. So if you're going to choose to play,
people that are usually taking the hammers and throwing the TVs on the ground in videos.
Yeah. If you're going to choose to play, do it responsibly, do it legally. And of course, don't bet money you need. That's the best way I can explain it. So, big news for gambling in the state of Florida, but yeah, don't steal from your company and do this in $22 million. Anyways, that is our time.
Yeah, you have to wonder how he did it. It's sort of like the Bugs Bunny. That's one for you, 1, 2 for me, one for you. You know,
that's our time though. Yeah, week 14 going to be in the books by the time you see us next. Fantasy playoffs. This board will be filled up with teams that did make it, didn't make it. A lot of check marks so far, 1X, and a few that are going to be determined in the next week or so. I'm guessing 3 or 4 miss out of 14, which is all not too bad. 140 and 81 on the season, though, is pretty good. Of course, there are some leagues where you get a win if you beat the median, so it's like 17 games a week. That's how it's an odd number. With that, I am Flying Ryan Gokers along with
Tampa Motormouth, Joel Verone.
And after a long day out playing disc golf in the sun, I'm going to go take a nap or go to bed or eat dinner and then go to bed. I don't know yet, but with